Alright, inside the cabinet, not much you'll need to do in here. I'll just give you a brief explanation of some of the stuff. Obviously the on-off there, we are running 208 to 240 3-phase. So you only have 3-phase in there and a ground strap up there on top. Fuses, servo drive. This is the first time I've went with a drive this big, hoping to get a little bit more speed out of it. We always torqued out with the other drive. It was kind of our limitation. So we put a bigger drive in there. You can run the motor a little bit harder. Blue drive. The Lenza is for the pinch rollers. Should be all programmed, ready to go. It's ready for the potentiometer. Then just some other basic stuff, e-stop circuit stuff, voltage stuff, relays, all wearable items. Wouldn't be a bad idea to get a couple of those relays, get the part number off. Everything else pretty basic. Up top, we have the operator panel. So we got start, stop, power on, light, and then e-stop. E-stop works just like the door switch did. It'll send it into e-stop mode. Not what you want to use to stop the machine, only in a case of emergency. If you ever run into a situation where the machine airs itself out, maybe it was pulling too hard, whatever it may be, where you didn't hit e-stop but the machine stopped on its own, you probably have to main power cycle the machine, which is going to be turn this main knob on the outside of the cabinet off and then back on. If it runs into a major problem and airs itself out, it needs a total restart of the drive. Just e-stop and off won't do it. E-stop's only when we do it and purposely do it. So here I got our operator panel. So all of these are adjustable by just touching them. There are limits into them that won't let you go over certain numbers. For instance, run speed, 40 is the highest. If I click on run speed and I try to put 50 in there, it'll change it right back to 40. Because 40 is the limit we found. If we go any higher than that, it'll air itself out. Same thing with X cell and D cell. Pleat height, I don't think it'll let me go higher than 6, but let's see, maybe 6.5 is what I have it limited at. Let me do a 6.5. Let's see if I can go 7. Yeah, it let me go 7. Let's see if it'll let me go 8. Yeah, so it's letting me put more in there, but it's going to limit itself out. It's going to air itself out, actually. Probably if it comes back and tries to go 8, it doesn't have that much travel in it. So what our pleat height does is whatever we put in here, obviously it's going to go times by 2. So if I put 4 inches in there, my pusher bar is going to move back 8. Now what we don't have figured in, and there's really no way for us to figure it in because of material thicknesses, is the radius at the top and the bottom of the pleat. So to make a 4-inch pleat, a true 4-inch height pleat, you're probably going to have to put 4.1 in there or 4.05. There's just no way for us to know how thick a material anybody's running to put to compensate for that. So obviously you aren't going to run a true 4-inch very often anyway, so you're going to be putting 3.5 in there to run a 4-inch filter. You may have to put 3.6 in there, depending on how many pleats are in the pleat pack, how far you stretch them out is what height you want. So that's a number you guys will come up with to be ideal for what you're doing. Home offset. So this number is only a positive number, won't let you put a negative number in, and that's going to leave it off of the stripper bar. So if I'm running, say, a yellow material that's really thick, I know there's materials out there that are, say, 100,000 stick. Well, that pusher bar is going to come forward, hit the stripper bar, it'll never get to 0 to our home where we want to get to because the materials are too thick. So you can put an offset in there to say I don't have to come all the way home. I want to come 100 thousandths from home, or 200 thousandths, or 50 thousandths, whatever that number is, to make it so you don't have to come all the way home. So right now I was doing it all the way home because I was getting a nice, trying to get a tight pleat. and just where I have the home sensor. So I can put 30 thousandths in there. That'll say a 32nd off of my home where it was homing. Kind of makes up for the material thicknesses. Like I said, if you put a really thick material in there, some people would set up a second to unwind and run 2 rolls, and they could never get to home with that. So we made that adjustable where you can put whatever offset you want in there. Current cycle count, that's lifetime right now. I mean, you could probably undo that and make it every day if you wanted, whatever you wanted. Home speed, we have it set at 1. That's just the speed we like to home at. We found that's where it met the sensor the best. A stripper up timer. So that's 300 milliseconds. So that's 0.3 of a second. And that's how long that stripper bar is going to come up in the air for. So while it's running, you can sit and adjust that timer and make it where it just barely clears the pleat. And it's just an adjustment we have. If you put 400 in there, it'll pretty much come all the way up. 200, it'll come up 2 to 2.5, 2 to 3 inches. So it's just a timer you adjust. A pusher return timer. So that's a timer for how long the stripper bar has to be down and have that sensor met that I showed you earlier with the red light before the pusher bar starts to go back. So what that is if it's bouncing or doesn't have it completely held, or maybe it hits the sensor sooner and the material is not totally clamped, that's a timer adjustment. So you can make sure that that stripper bar's down, material's clamped, so when that pusher bar comes up in the air to go back, the material's not moving on you. So it's a short time. We don't have a lot of time in that one. Pusher bar forward timer is to make sure before the pusher bar goes forward that we're all the way clamped down. So as that pusher bar comes forward, or before the pusher bar comes forward, we want to clamp down on the material. And that's where you get your consistent pleats, is to make sure that you're down before you come forward. Problem with air-powered pleaters is you can never really get that. You'd be coming forward and clamping down at the same time. So we can put a number in there, and you want it as low as possible to keep your speed up, but you want to make sure you're down. So you can hear it clunk, then go forward, clunk, go forward. And that's an adjustment you can make while you're running. I got it at 200. That's about as fast as you can go. Anything lower than that number, and you're going to start to get inconsistent pleats. Higher than that, you're going to slow it down a little bit, which may be totally fine. To put a higher number in there, make sure you're down before you go forward. Pleats per cycle, that's where your marker is going to come in. So right now I got it at 15. Every 15 pleats, it's going to fire that marker. Then current pleat count is where it's at in that pleat cycle. So it's at 5 of the 15 right now. You can hit them, reset them, change them, whatever you want to do. So I can go in that 15, make it 10, not 40. So now our pleat counts at 10. So every 10 pleats it'll run that marker. So right now I'll do a couple of dry cycles on the machine, and then I'll load the material in. But pretty much all I'm going to do is hit start. It should be making a 4-inch pleat, which means I'll be coming back 8 inches. I got it at 40% run speed, which is as fast as we can pretty much go. So I'll make a little adjustment here to the stripper up timer. So I'll take that 300 and I'll make it 100. Well, let's go 110 just so that I hit that button. We'll see how much shorter that comes up. See, it's coming up a lot less now. So adjust that number back up. Let's go 400. That should pretty much take it all the way up. Here at clunking, that's totally running our travel out, which is close to 7 inches up. So when you're running, you're just going to want to barely clear that pleat, enough that it lets the pleat pop through. So 250. So it's coming up, I'd say 4 inches. It's probably coming up in the air right now. So linear bearings, that's what we're going forward and back on. All linear guide bearings. Guided block cylinders for the clamp. So I tell you, you could hear that clamp, that clunk, before it goes forward. That's me clamping down. So I can adjust this and exaggerate it. So that's the forward timer. I can put 400 milliseconds in there and it'll really slow the machine down. Let's see how it makes sure it's down. And then I can go put 100 in there. And you'll see how it's going forward before it's down. That's going to give you an inconsistent pleat. Not as inconsistent as an air one would because we're pretty consistent on our speed. But it's not going to give you a true 4-inch pleat because you're clamping down on the way forward. So, like I said, pretty much I found 200 to work. We'll put 250 in there. See, it slows it down a little bit. So, you want that number to be as low as possible and still make sure you're clunking down. That's why that 200 seems to be a pretty good number. It could maybe go down to 175 or so. That seems to be a good number. So a couple things didn't show earlier. So on our stripper bar down, I have these big rubber pads. That's what actually stops as we're coming down. So that's the adjustment to make of how hard you're clamping on your material. Those actually hold that up off of the steel plate, just barely. And then we should just be kissing down on it to clamp the material. So I'm going to hit stop. Now when I hit stop, it's going to finish its cycle. So you can see I hit stop there. It's not going to stop till it comes back and finishes that cycle on a normal run. All these numbers also on here are adjustable while it's running. You don't have to stop it to change it. You want to change your pleat height, you can do it while it's running. Your speed, home offsets, any of your timers, anything on there can be done while it's running. The only problem I've ever had is sometimes it seems like the run speed doesn't take. It depends on where it's at in its cycle. So I've had to hit it a couple times to try and get that number in there. It seems like when I put it on 10 was the only time I really had a problem with it. But besides that, it was good all the time. Alright, so I will go ahead and I'll load the material in the machine, which is pretty much going to be just lifting these pinch rollers up. That's in the air already, my pusher bar, so I can feed under it. I'll open this door so I can feed through it. And I'll just feed through the whole machine, hold it out here somehow, and then close the door. And then let the stripper bar clamp on the material.